It's a warm welcome to everyone this morning. My name is Michael Dwyer. I'm the CEO of Brighton Marine. It's really a pleasure to have everyone here. I ask that everyone remain standing for the presentation of the colors and remain standing for the singing of our national anthem sung by Julie Pro.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please have a seat. I'd just like to mention a little background on Julie, who just sang our national anthem this morning. Julie sings in memory of her cousin, a Massachusetts fallen hero, Staff Sergeant Matthew Buccino, who was killed in action on November 23, 2009 in Afghanistan, after his vehicle was struck by an improvised explosive device during a mounted patrol while serving with Company B, 2nd Battalion, 20th Special Forces Airborne. Julie is also the Director of Special Events for the Staff Sergeant Matthew Buccino Memorial Foundation, based in Sagamore Beach, Massachusetts. Thank you, Julie. Appreciate it. Thank you for everyone for coming. We have a full program. Hopefully, with the flaps up, it doesn't get too hot in here. I've gone beyond anything at this stage. So, again, good morning. My name is Michael Dwyer, CEO of Brighton Marine. It's just a pleasure to welcome everyone today to the ceremony to break ground on this terrific project. Today marks another significant chapter in Brighton Marine's distinguished history of serving uniformed service members and veterans. I want to acknowledge some speakers, dignitaries at this moment. In addition to our speakers, which I won't name their names, I'd like to recognize Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito, Representative Kevin Honan, General Francis Mangum, Massachusetts National Guard, City Councilor Anissa Asabi George, City Councilor Mark Siomo, City Councilor Michael Flaherty, I haven't put eyes on these two gentlemen, but Representative Michael Moran, Alston. And Senator Bill Brownsberger. At this time, I really have to recognize my leadership team, the Brighton Marine Board of Directors. Their vision, after a strategic planning session in 2002, brought us till today. And if I could just have all the Board of Directors and former Board of Directors just stand up for an applause, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. I'm going to continue to recognize a couple of other supporters in the Brighton community. I've mentioned Kevin Honan and Mark Sioma, who have been really there when anytime Marlene and I needed to have a conversation about this process or how to learn the neighborhood and how to integrate our mission into the neighborhood. Warren O'Reilly from the Mayor's Office does a lot of backseeing. Captain Russell, D-14 Commander. Our good friend Liz Sullivan, Executive Director, Brighton Main Streets. John Nash and his team at Franciscans, they're a great neighbor to have. I also would like to recognize the veteran service provider community, starting with the VA Boston Healthcare System, Chris Dollard, Judy Lippman, appreciate it. I'm not sure if I've seen Dr. Ng yet, but he certainly has been supportive. We have almost the complete executive team of the Greater Boston Veterans Collaborative, which really links veterans and VSOs and timely continuing education. And I'd like to please a round of applause for the Veterans Collaborative. I've lumped this person into the veterans community, but she's really everywhere. Sheila Dillon, who's the housing chief for the mayor. And of course, we couldn't have this conversation unless we had a conversation with then Commissioner Francesco Urena, now Secretary Urena, and the new Commissioner Giselle Sterling, both of them. I have been surprised that bureaucracy does not enter into their mindset. They have been also helpful and they've given us enough critique to, I think, to make this project worthwhile. Before I turn it over to my partner, Gilbert, this process started in 2012, following a strategic planning process, which wasn't really that painful. The vision of the Board of Directors was to make a positive impact on every veteran. And because of this project and the way the eligibility runs with 4 income entry levels, all veterans will benefit for housing in this project. We worked hard with our project partners, particularly TAT. Good to see Ed Bradford here. He started us off. To create a sense of place, not an apartment building that has rental subsidies. We want goals for integration for our veterans and heroes into the civilian workforce, together with an assimilation into the Brighton-Alston neighborhood. That's what an affinity group and that's what a sense of place should be. It is now my pleasure to introduce my good partner, Gilbert Winn, CEO of Winn Companies.
Thank you, Michael. It's quite a groundbreaking in many different ways today. I just want to start off by thanking Michael and the Brighton Marine Board. What a wonderful partner they have been. Marlene doing most of the work, Michael taking most of the credit. But but wonderful partners all the way through. A vision that did not falter when the road got tough. They were there for the project and for the purpose the entire time. In that vein, I also want to thank the people at Winn who actually did the work. And if you could stand when I mention your name, Leanne Hanfield, Chris Fleming, Dave Tennell, if you could please rise, and well-deserved thank you. John F. Kennedy once said that victory has 100 fathers and failure is an orphan. I'm going to get back to that later, but let me tell you how we got here. We started with a plan and a public request for proposals from Brighton Marine to say, let's try to do a different kind of veterans housing project here. There are certainly not enough, but we know that there exists veteran housing across the country for those returning service members that have disabilities and need supportive services. And while there's an acute need for that, what we also don't see enough of is veteran housing that gives a leg up to returning service members to raise a family and to live in high opportunity areas and to afford to live in the places that they have defended. Brighton Marine, that was the purpose. Could we do mixed income? Could we do multiple different and various different family sizes? Could we have studios all the way to 3 bedrooms? Could we have extremely low-income veterans alongside of veterans earning up to $100,000, raising a family as an engineer at the seaport? It's really, in my opinion, never been done on this scale and in this type of atmosphere in a private-public partnership. We wanted to be the first. And with the partners at Brighton Marine, we were well on our way. But nothing's easy. Nothing's easy anywhere. And we ran into some hurdles. And the hurdles were overcome by the confluence of the city, state, and federal leaders that are here today. Mayor Walsh was here in the first few months of his administration. He toured the property, and he said, I'm there for you. Tell me what you need. We're going to get this done. And Mayor Walsh was there for us every step of the way. The Baker-Polito administration. Nothing is easy, as I said. This project did not get funded by any particular program. It required the combination of various different sources, some that didn't fit perfectly in the funding mechanisms that existed, ones that had to only be created and put together by willingness of Charlie Baker and Karen Polito. And I can't say enough about their agencies. At the time, DHCD led by Crystal Cornegay, who's here today, now led by Janelle Chan, and Mass Housing at the time led by Tim Sullivan, and now I think someone named Crystal Cornegay as well. A little game of musical chairs was there. And Kate Racer at DHCD. It just really, everyone got together and said, we will plug the gap, tell us how to do it. I also want to point out Tommy Lyons. Tommy Lyons, a board member of Brighton Marine, helped us traverse all of the hurdles that we faced. He was there for me every step of the way whenever we ran into issues as an advisor, and he was there every step of the way when a meeting needed to be set up or a message made. And I think a special round of applause for everyone I just named, please. So, victory as 100 fathers and failure as an orphan. This was a congressman and then a president, and maybe here today we have one of those in Seth Moulton. And I would say that, Seth, you're stepping in and helping us with the hurdles that we had to overcome to get to this point was in some ways not needed. This isn't your district. You came in and you helped and you fought a battle and you helped us win it, and we're here today in large part due to you, so thank you very much. Victory as 100 fathers and failure as an orphan. That's become, over time, sort of a cynical thing to say. It means that people take credit for things at the end, or they'll run away if something fails. But really, when you really hear the true meaning of that phrase, It really means, as a father should, like my father has over many years, comes in and fixes and helps solve a problem. At the end of the day, the fact that there is accolades to go around was not the point. A true father's role is to go and solve a problem. And we're here today because of people like my father. We're here today because people like Larry Curtis, Michael Putziger at the Winn companies, who go in and attack problems that are hard to solve. If it was easy, anybody could do it. We're here today because we have a governor, a lieutenant governor, and a mayor who work together to solve difficult problems. They stepped in to make sure victory was assured. There was no failure. Failure was not an option. And that's why we're here today. There's no other state in the country that can brag about having leaders that are both good at their jobs and work together like we have here in Massachusetts. And we're very proud to be here. It's unique because of that. It's unique because of our partners at Brighton Marine. It's unique because of all of your support. And in 14 short months, we're going to be here cutting the ribbon, and we're going to have, as we always do at Winn groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings, I should say, we will have a tenant who has moved into the building be one of our featured speakers, and they can tell you how wonderful all your efforts have become. So thank you very much, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Gil. One correction, though. I'm not sure you've looked at the new schedule. It should be 12 months from now. We've accelerated. The next speaker is Congressman Seth Moulton. Seth has achieved the rank of Captain, U.S. Marine Corps, after 4 tours in Iraq. Seth was awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Combination Medal for Valor and Bronze Star. And as Gilbert alluded to earlier, politicians work in their districts, and this is far out of his district, though we have a clinic, healthcare clinic run by Stewart up in Hanscom Air Force Base. So I made a phone call to one of his aides a couple of years ago. I was a little stressed, January 2016. We've reached an impasse. I said, just please come down and take a look at these pillboxes and just tell me if they're historically significant in your eyes. He did. Phone calls were made. And I have to recognize, as Gilbert does, but I have to recognize Seth's unwavering support and moving this project forward during a stalemate with the Mass Historic Commission. So thank you very much. Please welcome Seth Moulton.
Thank you all very much. It's an honor to be here, and there are a lot of people to thank. Let me say the father analogy certainly rings true to me, because fatherhood has been something I've been thinking a lot about in the last few weeks. First thing I did when I came in here is I asked the governor for some advice on being a father, and I'm sure there are an awful lot of other fathers in the room that I could learn from today. You know, when you go through training as a Marine, one of the things they teach you is all the leadership steps, what you have to do to get things done in your platoon. And there are things you might expect, like come up with a great plan, do the reconnaissance to understand the intelligence, the situation. But they always emphasize that at the end of the day, you just got to get things done. You got to supervise to make sure that your platoon, your Marines actually do what you've set out to do. And we're here today at this celebration because we have a team of people who are willing to get things done. The fact of the matter is that, you know, we can talk politely about the obstacles encountered. The fact of the matter is there are an awful lot of people who said to all of us here in this room that we couldn't do that we couldn't do this. There are a lot of excuses, a lot of reasons why, a lot of reasons no. But the can-do attitude showed by the mayor, by the governor, by Tommy and his team, by everybody who's here to celebrate, that's why this is going to happen. we're in the midst of the longest war in American history. It's not a particularly popular war either. Our troops go through a lot overseas. And for those who make it home, the least we can do is welcome them back into our communities. But it's not just for them and their sacrifices. I served with some of the best Americans I've ever met in my life when I had the honor of serving in Iraq. It was a difficult war I disagreed with. It was an unpopular war back home. But I've never met better Americans in my life. And some of them were rich. Some of them were from Massachusetts. Some of them have come back and gotten college degrees and great jobs. But I never chose a Marine for a mission based on the degree he had hanging on his wall. There are a lot of guys who came from the most austere circumstances imaginable, who've never seen a lunch like this or sat in a fancy tent. They're great Americans as well. And just as proud as I was to be able to have them in my platoon and count on them when we said, despite all the obstacles, despite the people who say this can't get done, you need to do the job. I'd like to have them back in my life today as well. It's why I work so hard to keep in touch with them. It's why when people ask me, who keeps you grounded in this job as a United States Congressman, the answer is very quick and very simple. It's the Marines I served with. This is about building a community that's inclusive of all. And if you want to come back home, you want to come back to Massachusetts, and you can't afford to buy a house, you can't get access to a job, then we're really not welcoming you home. So, for all of you here today who have been able to get this job done so that those Marines, soldiers, sailors, and airmen truly can feel welcomed home, and that no matter what circumstances they came from, they can be a part of our community here at home, just as willing as they were to fight for us overseas. For all of that, for all of you, thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Congressman Moulton. Our next speaker is the Governor, Charlie Baker. I have looked at his record of the Baker-Polito administration, and it's riddled with commitment to veterans programs, and particularly recently, affordable housing. You may have heard that Governor Baker has become the nation's most popular governor. But what is equally special today for me is having two Needham High rockets on a stage in Brighton this morning. I'm not sure that has been done. Welcome, Governor.
The other thing Mike didn't say is that this Needham High rocket and that Needham High rocket really appreciate the fact there was no YouTube when we were Needham High rockets. Let me just start by thanking everyone for being here today, and especially I want to thank everybody for the perseverance and the creativity and the imagination they showed to make this project happen. Massachusetts, it's known by many, take their veterans seriously, and on a bipartisan basis, there's no state that does more for our men and women in uniform than we do here in Massachusetts, and it's something we are all justifiably proud of. But this particular project, a project like this one, is, to make a pun of it, breaking new ground. And the idea of coming up with an approach to supported housing that works for veterans up and down the income level and tries to solve some of the problems that, as the Congressman said, men and women coming home from the service have with respect to finding a place to live in communities that are very high priced because they're very much in demand is a terrific tribute to, as I said, the imagination and the creativity that so many people brought to this. I also just want to say that whenever you end up working on a project in which you have 2 sources of funding from the city, 5 sources of funding from the state and from public quasi-agencies and private funding involved, that's usually a pretty good sign that figuring out how to make this happen was not easy. But this is certainly one of the projects that we are most proud of that we've been involved with as part of our administration because we think it sets the table for the possibility to do more. I also want to say, by the way, to Representative Honan, how much I appreciate the work you did on our housing bond bill, which, as Mike mentioned, will make it possible for us to do a lot of things with respect to affordable and workforce housing here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I want to thank Senator Brownsberger for his work on criminal justice, which he really led the charge on. And I also want to thank Senator Mike Rush, who's with us, who's a lieutenant in the U.S. Navy Reserves, for your service and for your work on behalf of veterans here in the Commonwealth. And I also want to say to the dynamic duo down here, Commissioner Sterling and Secretary Urena, your voice, especially the voice of some of our most recent men and women in uniform, has been incredibly important to the work that we do. And finally, I know I speak for the Lieutenant Governor when I say how much we appreciate the work that we have and the opportunity we have to serve with the mayor and his team. We could not have a better partner working on projects around the city of Boston than Mayor Walsh and Sheila and so many other folks who serve on the mayor's team. And Congressman, thank you for leading the charge in D.C. I would like to add that we're about to send in the paperwork for the rebuild at the Chelsea Soldiers Home. That's a $160 million project funded jointly by the state and by the federal government, 120 units of housing and supported housing for men and women in uniform. Long overdue, but that project's going to get going at some point in the next year or two as well. And that was also a major team effort between folks at the federal level, our congressional delegation, and many folks in our administration. This is just one more example of the work that we do every day here in the Commonwealth of Mass to try to say welcome home and thank you to people who pay a price that in many cases can never be repaid. And thank you very much to everybody for turning out, and to Mike and to Tom and to the folks at Winn. Good luck, and I can't wait. Well, hopefully we'll have a chance to come back here and have a chance to cut the ribbon with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Baker, for your comments. I think Gilbert has already stolen a little of my thunder when it comes to Mayor Walsh. I have to acknowledge, and the Board of Trustees will have to acknowledge, his unwavering support for this project. He is behind our project since day one. Marlene and I met with the late Thomas Menino probably 6 months before his passing. Marty won the election. He had us in, wanted to know about the project. He told me to keep quiet and let Marlene lead the charge. He has been a friend of Brighton Marine through his stand-up in July and January of 2016 when it was desperate. He and his team came and supported us. He is behind our homeless, a $200,000 grant to start our homeless endowment fund that allows veterans to enter into rental housing. And the Board of Trustees has a restricted endowment for stuff like first month's, last month's moving. And to date, I believe, Marlene, we have 275 veterans and their families and homes throughout the Commonwealth as a result. And Mayor Walsh was here when we announced it on Veterans Day. So, without further ado, Mayor Marty Walsh.
Thank you very much, Michael. And I want to start by thanking Michael and the board for your persistence here. Actually, the first time that I heard about this project was 2012. I was the head of the building trades. Tommy Lyons took me over. We started talking about what can we do, because at the time there was a lot of different issues on funding and getting money together and pulling it all together. And I know that there's a lot of people to thank, but I just want to make sure everyone in this tent knows the work that Tommy Lyons has done for this project, staying consistent on it the whole time, along with Michael. I want to also point out the elected officials. Oftentimes, myself and the governor and the congressman, we get accolades because we happen to be in a room, but it's the local elected officials that actually make sure that the train stays on the tracks. And I want to give a special shout out to Kevin for his great work, to Mark, to Michael, to Will. Mike Rush is involved, obviously, because they really are, more so than any place in the Commonwealth, they're a team here. And when they're in, they're all in, and when they're not with you, you have to get them on board. So I want to say a special thank you to all you guys and the elected officials out here for your great work. We're determined in the city of Boston to make sure that our veterans come home and have a place to live. It's so important. Giselle's been mentioned a couple of times, and Sheila, who's an honorary veteran working on the housing and the money for the homelessness. Marty Martinez, our new Chief of Health and Human Services, working with Francisco and Crystal and Mary Lou Sutters at the state to make sure that our military families have everything that they need and deserve. And investment makes a big difference. We need to continue to make investments. Veterans housing is a top priority for us. In 2014, the end of 2014, Michelle Obama challenged mayors around America to end chronic veterans homelessness. And we took up the charge. I was in Washington. I said, absolutely, we're in. Boston's in. And I had no idea how we're going to do it. And I came back and I go, Sheila, I need your help. I just committed something really big. What did you commit? We're going to end chronic veterans homelessness in Boston by the end of 2015. And we brought Giselle in, and they were kind of looking at me, thank you, and they walked out. And we were able to end that. And we're able to, since 2014, find more than 800 veterans who are chronically homeless on the streets of our city and the streets of Boston and other places a home today. So we've ended chronic veterans homelessness in the city of Boston. That doesn't mean that there's not homeless vets on the street. There are. But the chronic piece of it is. And we're able to work with providers like Brighton Marine, one of our strongest allies, in making sure it's not just about housing a veteran. As you see, we're breaking ground on housing here, and that's great. But the congressman will tell you that, when veterans come home, there's a lot of challenges. They're faced with a lot of obstacles. And making sure that we have health care, family support set here. That's what's part of our program, but that's what's going to be part of this great program here. Making sure we have mental and behavioral health specialists to be able to sit down and work with our veterans and their families. Brighton Marine understands the deepest wounds that are often invisible. This expertise that we have here is going to be vital to bringing these issues into the light and make sure that all of our Boston veterans have what they have to live a full and healthy life. And not just Boston veterans, all of our veterans. We need to make sure we continue. It's easy to give a speech about how we support our veterans, how we support the flag, how we support the Constitution. It's about how we treat them when they come home is what's really important for us. And that's what we're seeing here today. This has been a long struggle, I know that. We're not going to go into the negative because it's all positive today. We're breaking ground today, and we should be very proud of it. This will be the biggest veterans housing development of its kind in Boston since the end of World War II. Think about that for a minute. Since World War II, the biggest housing project since the end of World War II. These homes will offer close access to high-quality medical care. Also, the veterans who are faced with homelessness at long last will have a home. It's in a neighborhood that we're able to help veterans with job training get easy access to their jobs. The commitment that we all have goes far beyond housing. We'll continue to lead in job training. We're going to work on small business ownership. We're going to end the stigma around mental health, telling our veterans stories, and we're going to be saying thank you to our veterans. Commissioner Sterling and her team of the Office of Veteran Services have been leading these efforts all along for the last 4 years. We don't just owe our veterans these services. We need their character and their skills. We rely on their resilience to bring our communities. They are leaders, and they are certainly problem solvers. I know that this development here will be a vital asset to our city for years and generations to come. And I just want to take a moment just to thank everyone in this room who had anything to do with us getting here today. And that might mean the community going to a community meeting, speaking up on behalf of this incredible project. It might mean making a donation to a different event. It might just mean saying a prayer. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to get to this very exciting moment today. And we will be back here in 12 months to cut the ribbon. When the governor was talking up here, I thought he was talking about the schedule for the construction. When Michael said it was 12, 14 months, but so, Gov, we look forward to being here a year from now.
Thank you, Mayor Walsh, for your comments. Much appreciated. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce Crystal Cornegay as our next speaker, currently the Executive Director at Mass Housing. She leads a billion-dollar company, a quasi-public agency that drives investment in workforce, affordable housing across the Commonwealth. Please welcome Crystal Cornegay.
Do that first. Good morning. Glad to be here. Thank you all for having me. I want to do a couple of thanks, and then I want to let people know that today is about good news and great news. So the good news is that we're celebrating the first generation of Mass Housing's workforce housing program projects. The governor and I were at an event Friday. We're going to be at an event again this month in which, without that program, we would not be having the income diversity that exists at this project today, which is very important because we want to maintain a city that remains diverse, not just racially and ethnically, but economically as well. And so this was really important to the mayor, really important to the board, and because of the leadership of the governor and lieutenant governor, we want to have that program. We have that program, and I want to thank Tim Sullivan, who was leader at Mass Housing at the time, for creating the program and leaving me such a great team that will continue with those efforts. I also want to thank Sheila Dillon. This is one of those projects, I mean, there are a handful that we go shoulder to shoulder through with. I'm glad that Gilbert remembers the gap conversation as, there's a gap, let's help you solve it. Because I don't remember that, Sheila, do you? I don't remember it quite that way. But because of the mayor, of who the mayor is, the governor and lieutenant governor, we are get it done kind of people. And so we figure out how to get it done. And so thank you, Sheila, for your work here and being a good partner to us. We know that no other state does more to meet the housing needs of its residents than Massachusetts. And no state is better positioned to meet the housing challenges we face. And this project uses all of the tools in Massachusetts' toolbox, state bond funds that we just got authorization for in the bond bill, state and federal tax credits, and $5 million from Mass Housing Workforce Initiative, as well as significant local support from the City of Boston. No other state has the partners that we have, has the variety of funding tools for building and preserving affordable homes for low and moderate income residents. And we're putting many of them to work here in Brighton. Well, Winn is putting many of them to work. So this project does all that folks talked about for the veterans, but without those tools, including the workforce housing program, we would not be able to maintain the economic diversity in our city, and for the men and women who have served our country and their families. So Mass Housing is incredibly proud to be your partner and to be here celebrating with you today. And so congratulations to all, and we look forward to being here with the governor and lieutenant governor in 14 months for the ribbon cutting.
Thank you, Crystal. Our next speaker, who's between us and lunch, And we had a debate in the office who would represent the board of directors, because we got 14 committed board of directors. Any one could do what I'm doing today. Tommy has been an active board member since 2012. Actually, I somewhat recruited him. We were over at home base, and I was curious what home base was doing. This was probably 2011. Met him at the cup of coffee. We talked, we introduced. My last name's Irish, and he was very dismayed that I put milk in my black coffee. So I figured he's the type of person I need to get to know. Tommy's been very informative, as he said, to our board, to myself, and our senior management team. And for those of you who know Tommy, if you Google Tommy Lyons, you get eye strain after a while. But I would like to just sum up my fondness, my respect as a leader within our board, and I believe this would come from our board as well. I had the opportunity to attend a Marine Corps student scholarship dinner a few years back. And I was awed at meeting General Joseph Dunford, who's from this area. He's now the current chairman and Joint Chief of Staff, United States of America. And we were talking and taking photoshops, and he turned to me and he said, do you know who you have on your board? And I said, I thought I did, but he keeps on insulting me and pushing me to do better things. And he said, Tommy is the most powerful corporal in the United States Marine Corps. We couldn't agree more. Please welcome Tommy Lyons.
You know I love pressure, Michael. Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, Congressman Moulton, Mayor Walsh, elected officials, my good friends Arthur Winn and Gilbert Winn, fellow veterans, ladies and gentlemen. As a member of the Board of Directors at Brighton Marine, I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge Michael, Marlene, the staff at Brighton Marine, our Chairman, Board of Directors, Bill Perry, all the directors for their commitment, dedication, and vision, not only to this project, but for the future changes that will happen on this campus. This is an important and historic day in the city of Boston and the Commonwealth. As Mayor Walsh said, when you consider that little or no housing has been built specifically for veterans since 1946, this is a unique opportunity. I spent 35 years of my life in the veterans community, helping to ensure veterans receive the benefits and services they have earned. And it's interesting when I look back now, how housing was always a priority for veterans and their families. As the Deputy Commissioner of the City of Boston for 10 years, we worked hard to ensure that veterans received the financial and medical benefits that they earned that would allow them to pay rent, receive health care, and stay in the community and in the apartment where they lived. As the Executive Director at the New England Shelter for Homeless Veterans for 8 years, we provided our veterans who were homeless, and I say that because I spent 8 years trying to change that dynamic. We have veterans who are homeless. We need to understand the operative word here, ladies and gentlemen, is veterans, not homeless. We have veterans who are homeless. And we provided safe, livable, and service and programs at that facility so they can become productive citizens again and move back to their community. But I found it very frustrating when a veteran completed the program, was ready to move out, he or she could not find a place to live. So today, we celebrate a major milestone. We are breaking ground on a brand new, permanent, affordable housing for our veterans on a campus where they will receive clinical care, behavioral health services, and their families and themselves deserve, and so richly deserve. Brighton Marine will give the newest generation of veterans a sense of place, community, not only for them, but their families as well. They will have access to education, training, opening pathways as they transition into civilian life in new careers. So to many who have made this possible, I say thank you. And let us start looking at more housing like this so we can ensure that our veterans continue to move forward. As a Marine, our motto is Semper Fidelis, always faithful. Today, we kept the faith to the many veterans who will call Brighton Marine home, and we will always keep the faith for our veterans moving forward into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy. At this time, I'd like to call up our guest speakers, along with Gilbert Winn, Arthur Winn, Bill Perry, Tom Lyons, Bob Lyons from Cranshaw Construction, and Bob Verrier from the architectural team.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right.